What about the Giants? You were talking about the Giants before. But is this a team that you think can get back there, can repeat?
I think they can. I really think they can. They are a team that really is a bunch of no-names. Guy like Jonathan Sanchez very quietly has a stable year. Obviously, Tim Lincecum is going to get his numbers. But overall, I think it's a consistent bunch, and I do think that they can get back to at least winning the division. Once you get into the playoffs, it's a little bit different story.
Right. Now, do you think that there are a bunch of no-names? They're not going to be no-names for long. Do you think that this team can be held together over the next 2-3 years with free agency and with trades and with everything? Does San Francisco have the money and the desire to keep these players around?
They certainly have the money. The Giants definitely are. I think the Bay Area is that classic big market, small market. The A's are not, but the Giants are. So they certainly have money. They went out. They got Tejada. They threw all that money at Barry Zito earlier a few years back, but obviously he's stuck with the team. He hasn't been performing the way they thought he would. Sabian was awarded a new contract, I think another 2 or 3 years. Same with Bruce Bochy. So ownership certainly believes that those two individuals, who were the architects of the team, can keep not necessarily this team together, but I do believe that they feel that they will be able to get some pieces. As long as you keep some pitching together, you can always plug some holes.
You know, something that's interesting, and I want to invite callers in before
Absolutely. 347-480-1724.
Before I bring this up, I wanted to invite the callers. But what I have to say, that the one thing that I believe that is interesting about baseball and was a surprise to me was a study I was reading the other day that suggested that baseball has the most parity of any sport. While football is the one that talks about it the most and everybody thinks that football has the most parity, it's actually baseball. The NBA is the worst. Major League Baseball by far the best, followed by the NHL, then the National Football League. So football at a third. You know, in the last 30 years, baseball has had 19 different World Series winners, while the NBA, by comparison, has only had 8.
Interesting.
And
you do
hockey
see a lot of repeats, sure.
And football fall in between.
That's an excellent stat. That's something I didn't even think of. I mean, because we're blinded by, especially here in New York, oh, the Yankees win it every year and that sort of thing. But if we look back, it's like, okay, we've had the Red Sox, we've had the Cardinals, we've had the White Sox, we've had the Phillies. So it's it really is a lot of parity over it, and that's something I didn't think of. And in turn, like you said, with the NFL, a lot of people discuss that, but we do see those same teams chugging along year in and year out.
Well, the NFL is the self-proclaimed king of parity. They throw it down everybody's throat. They talk about it nonstop. They're the ones who tell us that they have parity. And we believe it because so many times, while the same team wins a lot, we see a different team in the Super Bowl. So one team might be different, like the Green Bay Packers, but the Pittsburgh Steelers were returning.
Right, much like, say, let's go with the other Steeler titles, defeating Arizona and defeating Seattle. So, yes, you have a different team that's losing.
And that's just in recent years, because this study goes back 30 years. So, and you've got the Cowboys. The Bills were really the only team that got back in football 4 straight years. Most teams, and they say that the Super Bowl hangover is worse for the losing team than it is for the winning team. But even the losing teams don't get back even the next year, the year after the next year.
Sure.
And so what's surprising is hockey has a big parity. But baseball really surprised me because I thought the New York Yankees won every year. And that's what everybody tells me. And then when they don't win, it's the Phillies. But in the last 30 years, apparently the Yankees haven't won
as much
as we think.
That's true.
And other teams have won a lot. And the Phillies recently won. The Red Sox, don't forget about them.
Sure.
So I thought that was
Angels,
interesting, but it's nice.
Giants,
and the thing that's interesting is when I interviewed Roberto, we talked about the fact that it's frustrating as a baseball fan, something George Steinbrenner, the late George Steinbrenner, used to bring up. It was frustrating to him, and it's frustrating as a baseball fan, that when a team like the Yankees goes out and spends all this money, goes out and spends the money over the luxury cap, and pays the tax to the other teams, where they will then supposedly go out and get better players or keep their players so that the Yankees and teams like the Yankees don't steal them through free agency.
Sure, that's true.
and they don't. They spend it. They either keep the money or spend it on something else, baseball
They don't spend it
unrelated.
wisely, yes.
And then we sit there as fans and say that's so frustrating, and these teams don't compete like Pittsburgh.
Yes.
They haven't been there in a long time, and we get frustrated with them. But yet we see that there is a lot of parity. Why do you think there's so much parity in Major League Baseball?
I think the reasoning is it's just it's a game that can't necessarily be dominated. Much like, say, earlier when I was speaking of the Phillies, they have an outstanding rotation, but over the course of 162 games, someone gets hurt.
But that happens in all sports.
It does, but the 162.
They say football is such a grind.
It is, no, but I think it's a grind in a different way.
Do you want to know my theory? I think it's twofold. I think one thing, you are correct. It is a very, very hard thing to repeat in football. It's a very, very hard thing to repeat in baseball. But where it's hard to repeat in football, it's hard to win the Super Bowl again or even get to the Super Bowl. I think in baseball, it's hard to win the World Series again. So it's not just about getting there. In football, if you get back to the Super Bowl, you're probably going to win. I would say if you looked at the stats, most teams win when they get to the Super Bowl a second or a third time. You've seen some losses, the Steelers, the Pats, but for the most part, they win, at least more than once, right?
Okay.
In baseball, other than the Yankees, I think when the same team gets there, they don't necessarily win. Think of the Oakland A's. Think of the Yankees have lost a couple World Series.
True.
So I think that that's part of what baseball brings to the table. I think it is hard to repeat. In addition to that, though, I think a lot has to do with the farm system. You look at these other sports, hockey, the second most parodied sport,
sure.
Farm systems.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely.
Football, none. Basketball, none.
That's what the
And I think
colleges
that's
are
what it's
for.
about, is that these players get groomed and they move up, and before they get the big contracts, these smaller market teams, these lower income teams, can get a winning season here, a winning season there. The Moneyball theory can come into play. The Oakland A's can win.
Yes.
The Anaheim Angels can win. Other teams, the Twins.
Not so much a title, but they are contenders.
They're
in
contenders,
a low market.
absolutely. Teams can get there. They can win. They can make noise before their players come off their first contract and sign another big deal. Torrey Hunter would be a great example.
Absolutely.
And Jason Bay with the Pirates even is a great example.
Yeah, they had to get rid of him in order to get something. Because
so I think
he's not
because they groom them,
Pirates.
you know, you look at a football player, it takes 2 or 3 years for him to really mature and come into his own. You look at a baseball player, it might take 1 or 2 seasons, but a guy could come out of AAA and fly.
Correct.
And he's spent those 2 or 3 years in AAA.
Right, that's very
maturing.
true.
So, or AA or single A. So I think that it's the farm system, and I think the farm systems are so exciting and so important to baseball.
It is.
And I think that they need
I'm a
more,
huge fan of minor league baseball.
They need a farm system in football, I think.
I'm not sure how that would work, though.
But I think the fans would love it. They've been talking about this for years on the fringe.
To me, that's what the NCAA is for. I think
a lot of people would agree with you. Forget about the NCAA, though. Forget about the NCAA. Let's make it pro football. But anyway, seriously, I think it's the farm system that helps baseball so much.
It is. I mean, I'm a big fan of minor league baseball. I've seen a lot of guys rise up. Matt Cain, I've seen in the minor leagues. Cliff Lee, I was fortunate enough to see in the minor leagues. So indeed, you're right. You can see these guys forming, and once they get to the show, they're ready. So yeah, it's the grooming, as you say, takes place really at the lower level.
I know you have a lot to get to, Brett. I know you've got a lot to wrap up.
Sure.
And you've got some more callers and all this stuff. I know we got to get to a commercial break, but before we get to that commercial break, I wanted to just talk about sports for a second.
Absolutely.
And plug it, 'cause I know that you're going to go on with the show. So this show is the warning track, and I'm really, really excited about this show. Brett's going to have a lot of great guests, athletes, reporters, all sorts of people calling in, showing up in studio, and participating on Skype. And you're a TV and radio veteran for many years. You know baseball inside and out, and so that's very exciting. You can bring us a lot of great baseball information. And that's one of the things sports.com is going to pride itself on. In addition to that, we're going to pride ourselves on giving you the best content straight from the athletes. We'll be the athlete's mouthpiece, if you will. you are going to see the athletes hosting shows here on sports.com. They'll do it live in studio like we are here, and they'll do it over Skype. They'll have callers. You, the fans, will be able to call in and participate. And in addition to that, we're going to have some great on-demand segments where the athletes will go out into the community, do what they do off the field, and we'll follow them and show you what they're like. It'll be very interactive and very fun, and that's why I'm excited about sports.com, and you should be too. You should follow us at sports_media, that's SPORTCE_media, and you should check out our site, sports.com, as well as our Facebook page, and you can like us there, which that would be cool. Call in regularly, folks, 347-480-1724. We're going to have a lot of great shows for you. We're going to examine the cross-section of sports and other genres like technology, music, politics, and we're going to have a lot of fun stuff. It's underway now. We're going to be getting bigger, stronger, and better. There's a lot of buzz already created. We did the NFL Player of the Year Awards for the first time ever, broadcast that live from Dallas, Texas. It was an amazing show. You can check that out on our site, and I think that that's one of the great things, that everything we do is available on demand after it's live. So you can call in and participate. You can watch our on-demand segments, or you can watch what was our live shows on demand at your convenience. Check out our website, sports.com, and that site also will be changing in the next few months to bring you more features you've become accustomed to and you are really excited about. So I want to thank you guys for watching and enjoy the rest of the warning track. And thank you for bringing me on, Brett.
Absolutely, thank you. We'll definitely have you on again over the course of the season. I'd certainly enjoy working with you, and I'm very excited about this whole baseball scenario. It's good stuff.
Me too, and I've certainly enjoyed being on the warning track and talking baseball with you. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you, Mike. And yes, indeed, we'll have another segment, and we will certainly talk about the spring training aspect.